My name is Vivian Rowan, 34 years old. And the last thing I remember before waking up in this cold VIP hospital room was the gentle smile of my mother-in-law as she scooped me a second serving of tiramisu. I opened my eyes. Fluorescent white lights drilled straight into my pupils. A sharp pain throbbed in my hand from the IV needle next to my ear. The heart monitor clicked. Steady, soulless. The hospital door was half open. A sliver of light spilled in from the hallway, and through that narrow crack, I heard the whispering voice of Gretchen. My mother-in-law. It was sharp as a knife sliding through the gap. Are you sure she took it? Then a quiet laugh from Paige. My precious sister-in-law. Relax. Mom, she ate half the plate. By tomorrow morning, everything will be ours. The blood in my veins turned to ice. A freezing chill ran down my spine, but my mind had never been clearer. I reached for the phone on the chair beside the bed. Battery at 34%. I opened my messages and typed exactly one line to my attorney. Execute the plan now. They had no idea that 48 hours ago, I had signed a set of documents they could not possibly imagine existed. And the woman who helped me draft them was at this very moment on her way to the hospital. But to understand this insane play, I have to take you back to the beginning. What happened at that dinner table was actually sparked long before the wine was ever poured. I grew up in rural North Carolina. My mother raised me in a rundown double-wide trailer she rented on a soybean farm. She worked night shifts at a gas station and spent weekends sorting donations at a church thrift shop. I never went hungry. But I learned a hard truth very early on. Nothing in this world comes for free, and nothing stays unless you hold on to it with both hands. I threw myself into my studies, got a nursing scholarship, graduated valedictorian. I worked night shifts, weekends, and holidays while other people gathered around their family tables. I got my master's degree and started my home health care company, Rowan Home Health, right on my kitchen table with exactly one laptop and a phone that never stopped ringing. 5 years. I worked myself to the bone, turning it from a massive zero into a network covering 6 counties with 23 employees. That was sweat. That was blood. That was my stubborn refusal to quit. I was incredibly good at taking care of other people, but I was terribly blind to noticing when someone was circling me like prey. I met Tyler at a fundraising gala. He was tall, quiet, and had a way of listening that made you feel like you were the center of the universe. When I told him about my company, his eyes did not glaze over. He asked me how I handled cash flow. At the time, I thought he cared. We dated for 11 months. His gentle, steady nature made me mistake it for love. When he took me home to meet his family, stepping through the gates of their private estate, I naively thought I had hit the jackpot. Gretchen met me with a hug that reeked of Chanel. She held my face in both her hands, her eyes welling up. You are exactly what this family needed. The dining table was draped in silk, heirloom china. Paige, Tyler, sister. sat opposite me, bouncy blowout, perfectly manicured nails. She smiled and asked questions, but her eyes scanned me like she was appraising a piece of merchandise. Tyler kept glancing at his phone, flinching every time Gretchen called his name. On the drive home, Tyler squeezed my hand. Mom already loves you. Looking back, that warmth was just a sight survey. She was appraising my value before I even knew I was up for sale. 6 months after the wedding, the fangs finally started showing beneath the aristocratic facade. And Gretchen invited me to lunch at an overpriced bistro. She ordered for both of us, then set her fork down and intertwined her fingers. Vivian, our family has a real estate trust. I think it would be very smart if we merged your company assets into that trust. It optimizes taxes and protects the company for you. The way she said it was light and airy, like she was granting me a favor. I took a sip of water, swallowed the lump in my throat. Thank you, Gretchen. But I built my company before I married Tyler. I want to keep it independent, to keep things simple. The smile on Gretchen's lips froze. It did not reach the corners of her eyes. Of course, dear, just think about it. Our door is always open. That night, Tyler grumbled while I was washing dishes. Mom just wants what is best for you. Do not make everything so awkward. I slammed a plate into the drying rack, the porcelain clinking sharply. I am not making anything awkward. I just said no. That was the first time I felt the invisible cord tightening around my neck. The closed loop between Tyler and Gretchen, every time I touched the subject of money, it choked me a little more. Then the money started vanishing. $12,000. I found it on a Tuesday night while checking our joint account, transferred to an account number I did not recognize. I threw the bank statement down in front of Tyler. He looked away. Mom needed it urgently to close on a property. She will pay it back. That is our emergency fund. Tyler, he shrugged. It is just temporary. Do not blow this out of proportion. I gritted my teeth. 2 weeks later, another 5,000 evaporated. Same old song. Mom needed it. Mom was in a rush. That weekend, I opened a personal account at a different bank. I rerouted all my business income there, leaving just enough to cover household bills. It took Tyler 3 weeks to notice. He confronted me. I looked him dead in the eye because I work 60 hours a week to earn that money, and I have the right to know where it goes. He went quiet, but I knew the silent war had officially begun. I threw myself into my work. It was easier to breathe there than facing the man. I called my husband. I bypassed the problems at home by running a marathon in the business world. I told myself that if I built a fortress strong enough, the rot inside this house would not touch me. But I was wrong. A notice of debt arrived via certified mail. $340,000 in unpaid property taxes, 3 years overdue, under Gretchen and Tyler names. That night, Tyler broke down. The prestigious Prescott empire was actually a loud, empty barrel, abandoned real estate, mountains of debt. They had mortgaged properties just to fund their lavish lifestyle and maintain the illusion. Total exposure was nearly $1 million. That very evening, Gretchen called me. Her voice was still sweet as honey. Vivian, we are family. Family shares. I was wondering if you could transfer a sum from your company to help the family get through this. No. Very clear. Final decision. I replied coldly. The line went silent for a beat. I see. I will find another way. She said, it was not an acceptance. It was a threat. The storm began after a Sunday dinner in October. Gretchen homemade mushroom risotto. I ate 2 bowls because it was delicious. At midnight, I woke up. My stomach cramped like someone was crushing it in their fists. I vomited violently. My heart raced. My skin went clammy. The room spun. Tyler rushed me to the ER. The doctor concluded it was viral gastroenteritis, but the instincts of a nurse who had spent 4 years in the ER told me something was wrong. Everyone ate that meal. I was the only one hospitalized. I wrote everything down in a notebook and locked it in my office. 2 weeks later, I recovered. Tyler started asking bizarre questions about my bank accounts, about my will. Mom said we should understand each other's finances in case of an emergency. That night, while Tyler was sound asleep, I opened my company operating agreement. A sentence hit me like a splash of ice water. If I become incapacitated, Tyler, with his status as my spouse, will assume temporary executive control over all business operations. I wrote that clause when we first got married, before the missing money, before the debt, before that toxic mushroom risotto. I had never been a paranoid person, but I believed in symptoms and evidence. I started drafting an update to change my succession plan. But what truly killed something inside me was the day I dug through Tyler's briefcase looking for a phone charger. My hand brushed against a yellow manila folder, a healthcare power of attorney, my name at the top, Tyler designated as the person with full medical and financial authority. If I lost cognitive function, and at the very bottom was my signature, I stood rooted to the hallway floor. The fridge hummed in the kitchen. I had never seen this paper. I had never signed it. The sharp handwriting forging my name felt like it was tearing open. My chest, the man sleeping in my bed, my own husband, was carrying a document that could strip me of everything. I pulled out my phone, photographed every page, every stamp from the puppet notary. Then I carefully zipped the briefcase shut and put it back. The next morning, I met Nora, my best friend, and a pharmacist. She looked at me with dead seriousness. Viv, last week, someone called the hospital asking for your medical history. They pretended to be a private clinic, but I traced the number and it did not match. And what they were looking for was if you had any history of psychiatric illness or cognitive decline. My vision went dark. Nora slammed her hand on the table. You need a lawyer. Right now, and if you suspect you were poisoned, go get a blood test immediately while you are at your healthiest. Use it as your baseline evidence. I found Rachel Keller, a cold, sharp female attorney with zero ties to Charlotte elite circles. She listened to me for a solid 45 minutes. Rachel put her pen down. You are holding evidence of forgery, medical privacy violation, and a conspiracy to seize your assets. Your time is running out. We moved instantly, restructured the trust, stripped Tyler of all inheritance and executive rights, filed the forged POA with the county court to freeze its legal standing, and finally, we set up a dead man switch if I did not text Rachel a status update at a specific time. She would immediately activate a restraining order, freeze all assets, call the police, and file for an emergency divorce. That afternoon, I did not feel powerful, but I felt ready. And then I read the email. Tyler left his computer unlocked at home. An email from Gretchen to her lawyer detailing an emergency conservatorship plan. Step 1. When I am hospitalized, Tyler presents the POA. Step 2. File for emergency conservatorship due to cognitive incapacitation. Step 3. Funnel all company funds into the Prescott Trust. They had a lawyer. They had a judge in their pocket. They outlined every step to skin me alive while I lay helpless in a hospital bed. My heart rate slowed. A terrifying stillness washed over me. I took screenshots, sent them to Rachel, shut the laptop. For the next 5 weeks, I put on the greatest performance of my life. I cooked, watched TV with Tyler, laughed with Gretchen on the phone. I played the naive prey while quietly changing every password and draining the joint accounts. Night after night, lying next to the man trying to destroy me. I counted down the days until I could cast my final net. The dinner invitation arrived on a Wednesday. Gretchen called. This Saturday dinner for your 3-year anniversary, I am making something special. Her voice was unnaturally smooth. I replied, yes, I will be there. Attorney Rachel called me Saturday night. The dead man switch is active. Do not eat anything they hand you. Bring your own water. If I do not get a text from you by 11 at night, I pull the trigger. I called Nora. If I end up in the ER this Saturday night, call the attending physician directly and demand a full toxicology screening. Saturday night. The moon was bright. I walked into that house. Gretchen wrapped me in her arms. Smelling of perfume and garlic, Paige gave a fake laugh. Tyler avoided my eyes. Dinner passed with soft music, plastered smiles, and sneaky, assessing glances. I hid my sealed water bottle under the table. Then Gretchen brought out dessert. Tiramisu. I made it myself this morning. Vivian, your favorite. I picked up my fork. Every eye at the table locked onto my hand. The first bite, sickly sweet, heavy on the espresso. The second bite, a harsh chemical bitterness hit the back of my throat. It was not cocoa powder. It was drugs. Gretchen was staring at me, not the look of a mother watching her daughter-in-law enjoy a meal. The look of someone watching a countdown timer. I ate half of it. I forced that filthy chemical down my stomach I needed enough of that poison in my blood so the lab report could throw them all in a cell. 20 minutes later, the nausea hit like a slap to the face. My vision blurred. My hands and feet turned to ice. Vivian, what is wrong? You look pale. Gretchen exclaimed, unable to hide the absolute thrill in her voice. I gripped the edge of the table, stumbled up, and practically crawled to the bathroom. Locked the door, collapsed by the toilet. The room was spinning. I pulled out my phone and texted Rachel. Drugs taking effect. About 30 minutes before I lose consciousness, I splashed cold water on my face, looked at the woman in the mirror, drained of life, but with eyes as sharp as a razor blade. I dragged myself back out. Take me to the hospital. Novant Public Hospital. Do not call a private doctor. I forced the words out before collapsing. Gretchen froze for a second, then nodded. She wanted me in the hospital. That was her plan. She just did not know it was mine. Taylor drove like a maniac. He writhed in the passenger seat. Admittance. VIP room. Gretchen aggressively managed everything, isolating me from other patients. Everything faded. The beeping of the heart monitor, the smell of antiseptic. I woke up at 2:07 in the morning. My head felt like lead. From the dark hallway, Gretchen and Paige whispers drifted in. She ate half the plate. Tomorrow morning, everything is ours. Tyler will submit the paperwork and we will drain the accounts before she even wakes up. I lay completely still, breathing steadily, waiting for their footsteps to fade away. I reached for my phone, execute the plan. Now, sent to Rachel. Then I called Nora. Draw the blood now. Toxicology screen. I lay there, waiting for the sunrise to illuminate this brutal play. 8:10 in the morning. The hospital room door swung open. Gretchen walked in carrying a bouquet of peonies, followed by Paige and Tyler. She slapped a mask of fake concern onto her face. Oh, Vivian, my dear. She stopped dead. Her eyes slammed into the woman in the gray suit sitting rigidly in the corner chair. Who are you? This is my attorney, Rachel Keller. I replied, my voice bone dry, the bouquet of peonies lowered. Gretchen, lips parted. Paige took a step back. Tyler, hands shot out of his pockets. Rachel stood up, buttoned her blazer, and did not bother offering a handshake. Please take a seat. Mrs. Prescott. We have a lot to clarify. Gretchen sank into the sofa. That was the last moment she would ever control anything in that room. Rachel opened her file. Her voice rang out cold and precise. Word by word. She exposed the forged power of attorney. She announced the emergency restraining order signed by a judge 20 minutes ago. No one in the Prescott family could touch a single dime of mine or set foot in my company. Gretchen shivered. The aristocratic mask shattered. She shifted her tone, desperately trying to salvage things with a slimy sweetness. Vivian, you are sick and confused. We are family. Family shares. Do not let an outsider ruin this. I looked straight into Gretchen's eyes. No backing down. No screaming. I have my baseline blood work from 2 weeks ago, perfectly clean. I gritted out, and the lab is running a full toxicology screen on the blood drawn from me last night. If there is anything abnormal, and Gretchen, we both know there is, then this is no longer a family matter. It is a criminal case. The room was dead, silent. Only the beeping of the monitor remained. Gretchen's hands began to shake. Paige burst into hysterical tears, stammering out a confession about her mother putting heavy sedatives in the cake so I would sleep. Tyler buried his head in his hands, a coward to the bitter end. Gretchen shot up, straightening her back, trying to cling to the last shred of dignity of her rotting bloodline. After everything this family has done for you, taking you in, giving you a name, is this how you repay us? I looked at her, my eyes as cold as a glacier. Family does not poison family. Gretchen opened her mouth, but no sound came out. 30 years of dominating others. And now she did not have a single word left to fire back. She turned on her heel and walked out the door, not even glancing at her 2 children. An hour later, the police arrived. Rachel handed over the audio recordings, tests, the forged documents, and the positive toxicology report for heavy sedatives. The next afternoon, Gretchen was in handcuffs. Charge is assault by poisoning, a Class C felony. Potential sentence is 44 to 98 months in prison. Next came charges of forgery and financial fraud. Paige and Tyler confessed to everything to reduce their sentences. Tyler got a felony conviction for fraud. The Prescott mansion went up for auction to pay off their debts. The fake empire collapsed completely. They lost absolutely everything. Just as Paige had said, everything now belonged to its rightful owner. She just guessed the wrong name. 6 months later, I sit in my office at Rowan Home Health, signing a contract with a second hospital. We are expanding. Everything I own is intact. A new will, a new house, a stronger company. Divorced, clean, not a single penny tied to the Prescott name. I drove back to the country to visit my mother, sitting on the porch, listening to the cicadas. My mom was the same as ever, just quietly saying, "You were always the quiet one, but the quiet ones are always the ones paying attention." I took a sip of my coffee. I have not become more cruel. I have not become more bitter. I just see my boundaries with absolute clarity. I know what I must protect with my life and what kind of trash I am willing to kick to the curb. And the greatest lesson I learned, the one that almost cost me my life, the people who scream, "We are a family," the loudest, are sometimes the exact ones you need to build the thickest walls against